Yeah, 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 yeah. Going in. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Hey.
Welcome to June. We're here in June. Another fun live episode we've got in tune for all of our viewers and listeners. Mandy, happy June. How was your weekend?
Happy June. My weekend. You know,
Yes.
Amani, I all I did all weekend was chase the strawberry full moon. I was I
Wow.
was on the hunt to be able to see it, and Friday was clear, but it wasn't the full moon yet. We still had like one more day of waxing. But it was so cloudy here Saturday, Sunday, and I didn't get to see it. But it was awesome because it was great to be in nature, great to spend time with my husband and my pup, and we literally, I felt like we were, you know how they have tornado chasers?
Yes,
I
yes,
felt
yes.
like we were full moon chasers, but it was a great weekend. What
Good.
about you?
Hello.
What'd you do?
What did I do? Well, first of all, hello, Dean. We see you in the chat there. Thank you for joining in. If you're joining us live, make sure you leave us a comment so we can shout you out. This
I
weekend,
mean,
I was doing some stuff around the house, like because the construction's done, so I have to try to add in these lights, or whatever, that are like they turn on when it gets dusk outside and turn off when it gets light. So I was working on
oh,
that. I was
okay.
doing some writing. My big project this summer is trying to get through most of this book that I'm writing. So I was doing
Yeah.
that, prepping for my trip. So that was it. It was a pretty chill weekend in terms of events or going out, but I was handling stuff, just running lots of errands.
When do you want your book to be done, or when do you want it to come out? I haven't asked you this yet.
I would love to have the final draft written by, like, not final draft, the first draft finished by like Halloween time frame, like preferably into the summer, but it's a lot. And what I'm finding is that it might actually turn into two books because there's so
Hmm.
much information, and our attention span, we don't really like these big thick books anymore.
No,
So I
micro
know, so
books. Micro
it might
books are
turn
bust. Yeah.
it is. So it might turn into two. So by Halloween, if I could have everything done by Halloween, that would be amazing. So that's the goal.
You can dress as a two-time author for Halloween.
Yes, I could. So that would be amazing. Amazing. Someone else in the chat said audiobooks. So we have to see who that is. We see you audiobooks. Um, okay, our guest today. So we're gonna welcome Tess to our virtual stage. And Tess is extremely knowledgeable about all things tech, about all things event technology, in addition to being very experienced in the meetings and event space. So I first met Tess. We were in Indianapolis, I want to say. We were in Indianapolis for WEC, I think it was 2017. We were there at like a Black event planners, was a dinner, Tess was there, and she was just continuing to share knowledge after knowledge. And then we were able to get her to come to WeCon, our favorite WeCon. She came to WeCon Santa Barbara like 3 weeks before the
Oh,
pandemic hit. And we had like it was like a section where people could go and learn about LinkedIn and all sorts of things. And it was one of the most popular areas of the whole conference. So that's kind of a quick little snippet onto Tess. And we'll get her to the virtual stage and give her a round of applause for being here. So welcome, Tess.
welcome, Tess. It's so nice to meet
Oh,
you.
oh, thank you. Oh, that was a nice intro. Thank you, Amani. It was 2017. I can't believe it.
Yes,
And you know
yes.
what? You're right. It was right before the pandemic. Because yeah, I
Yes,
have stories
yes.
about that. But yeah, thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah. So we're here, our show, Adventures in Business. We want to learn about you, about your kind of thoughts on what's going on in technology and event technology. Manny has tons of questions for you. She always brings the good questions. My question for
Chopping.
you is um what has been since because you started to kind of get into live streaming and doing a lot of live programming both on site and from your home studio, what have been maybe two or three things you've learned about live streaming since when you first started back in like April 2020, right? It was like April 2020.
Well, it was years before that. But
Okay,
yes, in
yes,
in
all right,
in in, in, in COVID years, you can say it. But yeah, years before that. But
yes.
yes.
Yeah, so tell us what have you learned? What did you learn during that specific time period? And then we'll let our conversation flow from there.
I think thank you so much, Amani. I think some of the biggest things that I learned is having to educate moment by moment those who are on with you. It's that concept of people don't read, people don't listen, and people don't realize that live is live and not Memorex. So, and then they're not, and trying to make them comfortable with it, along with the angst that was going on. So I think it was really more of a need for kind of a role that I tried to create, um, which is more of a virtual concierge, just someone who can kind of really be there to kind of handhold people, make them feel comfortable, relaxed, and be able to do what needs to be done. And I think, and another thing that I learned the most is that tech companies, you can push them to iterate fast as long as the demand is there. So the technology that was available long before COVID hit us, um, was nice. It worked. It worked in a lot of different industries for a number of years. But on our space, on the event tech side, it wasn't necessarily there. It was there a little bit, but not as much as we needed to. But the fact that we can push them and say, hey, the demand is here, we need it, and the technology just got much better. So I think those are the biggest things.
Got it. Mandy, what's your first question for Tess? I know you got a nice list there. Talk to us.
I do. I do. I want to build on your event concierge technology concierge piece because I think in all of those events that was the biggest thing. It wasn't what does your tech work or not. It's the user error, the user experience. So I think that is a good takeaway. I hadn't thought about it in that way, but yeah, hand holding is important and making technology can make people feel dumb sometimes. And that the last thing you want to do is make somebody feel like that. So I think anyways, I appreciate you bringing that up. But I do have a question about venues because I want to go back to I think you worked at the Atlanta Technical College. Am I remembering this right?
Yes, yes, yes.
And you ran that venue. And
Mhm.
I've run venues before and I got my chops. Like I learned every entrepreneurial thing I ever could know about working at a venue. So I want to ask you, like, what are some of those entrepreneurial things that you learned from working at Atlanta Technical College, running that venue? Some things that you learned that you still use today in your daily life, and then the second part of the question is, what advice do you have from running venues? What advice do you have for people that run venues and hotels right now?
Oh my goodness, I am so excited that you asked me that question because no one digs that back deep in your bio to give you that much insight, and I really appreciate you for that.
I
For a cou
appreciate you. I go deep, Tess.
Yeah. Thank you. For a couple of reasons, as you'll see as I answer. So running the venue, it was all about entrepreneurship. It was nothing more than it was nothing short of that. Number one, my venue was under economic development. So if you know anything about what economic development means for communities, it's a sense of empowerment, right? And it was a sense of what we had to do. Now, even though I was in a situation where I didn't necessarily have to turn a profit, I had to break even, if you will, right? I needed to make sure all bills were paid and everything was done. It was nice to make a profit, but I still had to make sure certain things were in order. So, from hiring staff, right? Quality staff was
Mhm.
challenging because I was at a state school, budgets of state schools, Monty knows this, right? School budgets are very different. I come from academia, very different. I come from a private school. I worked private and public, right? So the budgets are very low. So what do? How do you squeeze that blood out of that tomato? So
Mhm.
learning how to work with budgets and forecasting, but then also making sure that you have quality, like I said, employees. So that had to do with training, right? And development, and showing them, creating a way for them to have standard operating procedures to follow that brought them to a certain level. So that's one aspect of it. Then on the other side is, I've always been an advocate of streamlining processes and technology and things of that nature. Well, that took budget too. So what I had to do is learn how to negotiate very well, right?
Mm.
That's all the things that entrepreneurs have to do to get the price point down where normally people would, at least my predecessors, would never have been able to get the type of technology that I did, but I had to build relationships and see what that was like and test things out and be beta testers for things and take risks and then negotiate internally and externally with the CFO, right? As well as
Mhm.
my boss, who was the vice president of economic development. Now that brings to mind that he actually was my favorite boss. He was the best
Mm.
person who ever taught me anything around giving me the liberty to, you have all these pie in the sky ideas and creative. Well, how are we going to really bring it into this structure right here? I had to go to him and negotiate. And as long as I could prove my worth or prove or pitch him, right? Which everyone's talking about now, pitching, and prove to him that I could do it, he would allow me that leeway to be able to do it. And that built the trust to be able to do the things that I can do. And it's been maybe 2 weeks now that he actually recently transitioned. So it means a lot to me
Mm.
that having even striking out on my own for the second go around, that was my very last job
Mm.
in the corporate sector and world, and to have that type of experience in, within a structure of a framework, but also function from an entrepreneurial perspective was huge. So if I give any advice to those who work in that situation, building relationships is very key with all departments that you're in, because you never know who you need at any point in time. Also working with organizations that are similar to yours, associations, because I joined an association, which was ASTI, the Association of Conference and Collegiate Event Directors International, which is an international organization that did
Mm.
what I did. I
Mhm.
used their data to approve what I was trying to do to get
Mm.
approvals for what I was doing. So there's all kinds of things that you can do, not just as a regular venue manager, right? You need to think from a business perspective how you're going to run your business. So thank you so much for asking that question.
Well, you're welcome. I love that info. And I just have a quick follow-up to it because you said something I hadn't thought about is I imagine with the funding that you didn't have and with it just being a venue in general, that you had to be super scrappy and you just kind of had to get really creative with how you got the funding and everything. So, is there a story or an example that you can harken back to be like, I can't believe I did it, but I did it? Like a success story of like the scrappiness that came from it or the creativity that resulted in that experience?
Yeah, I had several of them.
Oh, cool.
Oh, and one
Tell us everything.
one kind of has to do with everything that we do now. So, like I said, I joined A-Side, and it was kind of like I found my people, right? So I have MPI, I had PCMA, I had all of these different organizations, but this one dealt with people who are in academia, who were working in environments like mine, right? Events across the world. So they had data that proved what the value of the roles were at the colleges, and it needed to be, and venues, colleges and venues, right? They also had the data to substantiate what those roles were, what the job descriptions were, how much the average pay for our industry should be, right? And at the time, I really didn't have the money to hire anyone. But as a result of taking their data, putting it together with my report to prove what I want, I was able to hire, I did 2 initially, but eventually throughout time, I at least had four employees at some point. Part-time,
Wow.
I had to settle with
Wow.
part-time, but
Yeah.
at least I could rotate schedules. I could kinda try make things lean and mean, work with students and do some other things. So I actually was able to move my department and structure it very differently, because of that data and what actually, came. So membership does have its benefits. In addition, same sort of situation, I was able to prove the worth of the event technology at the time. So I could actually go out and start looking at RFPs of technology that would actually help. And I was able to bring on several different vendors at that time. So I think that those were very huge success stories, because things I would not have been able to do, right, without it.
And a great reminder to, even if you're not running an event, just whatever you're doing in your business, whatever sector you're in, there are so many resources that provide data points that help you build your case, your
Yes.
business case. I think I
Yeah.
thank you so much for that reminder. For anybody out there listening, like, remember your resource, your trade memberships. There's a reason to pay your membership, and there's so much
Yeah.
data available to you to help you get your job done. So I think that's
Exactly. Not
really
just
good
networking
advice.
and cocktail parties.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Although those are nice too. Yes.
Yeah, those are nice too.
Right. Now, if we kind of fast forward a bit to today, we would be remiss if didn't have a discussion about AI and what do
Mhm.
you think its impact on events will be, the event industry, and what are some ways you're currently using it within your job?
Oh, wow. All the buzzwords, right? All the things.
Well, we have to cover that. Otherwise, people will
It's like why we're
anyway.
here, right?
Yes.
So people probably are not going to like the things that I say about it, but it's okay, because I'm always that one. I'm always the outlier. So I've always been a proponent of technology, period, in terms of advancing our future. That's just what it is. And also from a fundamental standpoint of utilizing technology as a tool, not a crutch,
Mhm.
always. And also looking at technology as a way in which we can um, have it do mundane tasks so that we can use our brains on a higher level as we were built and designed to do as human beings. So those are my basic fundamentals for tech, right? So if we move along to event technology, same concepts of things, right? So if we were talking, let's say, about a hybrid event technology that would help us do live and virtual experiences, right? It's not to say that I need to replace my entire staff, right? In order to do so, and I need to diminish that. No, I need to give them tasks that make sense for them to do, to strategize, right? Strategic thinking, critical thinking, those types of things, and then let the technology handle other aspects of it. So when it comes to AI, I don't think about it any differently than that. It is
Mm.
extremely powerful.
Mhm.
It's something that I know that we need in order to push through to the next level. And when I say the next level, I think, let me pause for a second and share that there's been studies out there that have said, and I was so excited that it came not too long ago, that our entire world has moved forward 5 years. So what does that mean with a 5-year cycle? With COVID hitting, we jumped 5 years. So tech has to continue to move and push us to where we need to be. Is it going to be dangerous? Can it be dangerous? Of course, but all kinds of things can be dangerous. Will it replace jobs? I think it can in certain levels, but it doesn't mean it's going to completely change, again, that critical thinking, that strategy, the higher level of thought process that humans can put to tasks and processes and procedures and moving our environment forward. So what is it going to do for events? Oh, I think it's not what is it going to do, what has it done? We've seen bots at event technology all the time. 24 Chat has been out there for a long time. There's tons of them that's been doing and utilizing artificial intelligence throughout time. And it's just kind of been peppered in what we do. But I think what we have to do as event strategists is think about ways in which we can program, because it's machine learning, program the artificial intelligent tool that we're going to utilize for our benefit, and to, again, remove some of the mundane tasks, learn how to slowly feed and educate our audiences as well as internal stakeholders to get the results that we need. It should be a part of the tool belt, not to replace. So
Yeah, and
sorry, I know
yeah,
that was
no,
long-winded, but
It's
it
very
it
good.
was
Go ahead, Wendy.
awesome. Like, I'm just chewing on all the food. It is so good. I mean, I know there's some planners that I work with that have recently used ChatGPT to write sessions session descriptions. They know what the title is, but they're using them to write session descriptions. Can you give a couple examples of how you've seen people use AI for their events? A couple specific examples, like, using it to write a session description, or, what else have you seen that's worked for you that might disarm it for those people that are listening that are like, I'm so scared to use
Oh
it, but
yeah.
then you're sharing
Uh,
something they might need.
Oh yeah, session descriptions I think are wonderful. I think speakers have used it to help lay out their outline and kind of drill down to possibilities of what can be done, activities that can be icebreakers that can come up, and be used within the sessions. I think from an engagement standpoint, I think of it as jarring your memory or triggering thoughts for you, or helping you augment what's there. Like, how you will sit here and say to yourself, what should this agenda look like? What should be first, second, and third? All of those questions that we as planners used to sit back on with a piece of paper and write out how we want things, and drill it out. And then we'd move that to an Excel document. Lord, let's blow up Excel. But anyway, Excel document and put in how we want to plan things out. Throw ideas to it so it gives it back. And then you can say, oh, okay, well, let me put this puzzle together. And this looks differently because I had idea. I kind of was going this direction. I thought about it, and let me think about it again. So to me, I think it should be in our tool belt to help us along the planning way. So I think session descriptions are good, planning things out. But most importantly, I think people should just jump in and use it.
Agree. Yeah, definitely. Now, if we've talked about AI. I think you're also extremely knowledgeable about LinkedIn. So I first want to ask you, why do you laugh? What's so funny?
Aw, it brings me joy.
Okay, well,
Ah,
yeah,
we
I was like,
we
yeah,
love having joy on this
yeah.
on this
Yeah,
talk
I blush a little bit in
show.
different ways.
Okay, blushing is
Aw.
good. Blushing is good. Yes, yes. In terms of LinkedIn, I first want to ask you, what are some tips you think people miss, but also what are some new things you've learned about, like, you could say LinkedIn or other platforms that we might not be considering that we should definitely pay attention to? So two-part question.
Um, so first of all, I adore LinkedIn and what it has done for business. Um, I think what people are not drilling into is the power of being a creator and utilizing it as a destination to tell their story. And then they should be telling their story within their LinkedIn personal profile around, just kind of your entire career path, right? Should be documented and highlighted there. And then that way you can express it any way you want to. You can do it visually with the features tab. You can actually create um, you could put your posts and features so that it is visually pleasing for people, and people can kind of scroll through it and visually see some of the posts that you've done. If you have creator mode on, which a good bit of you should turn on creator mode, you
Yes.
can do LinkedIn Live. That's the only way that we're able to do LinkedIn Live now. We can do audio events in there. But I think something that's underused is writing an article in LinkedIn.
Hmm.
Mm.
And lots of people have written blog posts before and posted on their website, or they've written a long post in Instagram, which Instagram is blogging tool, right? Technically, but they don't repurpose that content enough, or they don't use it to create. You could create drafts in there. You could do highlights of content. You could be at a live event, and I think planners don't utilize it enough to push people to create and do takeaways from their conference. Within that particular blog, because you can do pictures, videos, and everything when you're writing an article right there in LinkedIn, and that can be repurposed and sent out to people. So there's tons of tools. I could probably sit here forever and answer that question, but those are some of the things I think people should really key in on. And the two things is also separating your personal profile voice, because we're talking about business right now. Everyone should have a business page if they're in business, and the voice that comes from that business page needs to be the business's voice, not the same voices on their personal page. So they should be separate.
Interesting. Okay.
Uh,
Go ahead,
Yeah.
Mandy.
Well,
Yeah.
I think you're onto something. Any LinkedIn post of mine that's ever had any traction is a day one wrap up of XYZ conference with six or seven, the max amount of pictures and four or five key bullet point takeaways. And that's content that people enjoy, right? And I think I agree with you. Like, what world do we live in? Like, can we imagine a world where if even 30% of the attendees that went to a conference every day took 3 minutes to do just a quick LinkedIn wrap up with a couple
Yep.
pictures, and then they
Yep.
use the conference hashtag or tag the
Mhm.
conference organizer, like
Easy.
easy,
Easy.
right? And then just share,
Easy.
share, share. Yeah, I appreciate you
Yes,
bringing that
Mandy.
up. It's such a good
And
reminder.
I've never seen a marketing team or a planner of any sort for a conference encourage their attendees to do that. Now,
Mhm.
I work with the Dahlia Plus team all the time. You know that, Amani. And we're out there doing these LinkedIn corners and tech bars for years. I've never, ever seen that. We've coached people to do things all different types of ways, but they don't make it as a part of the strategy.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Time to make that change.
Time
Yeah,
to make
Yeah.
the change. Starts
for
here.
sure.
Let's
Yeah.
all do it.
Yeah.
Amani, you're going to MPI. You're going to
Yes.
WEC.
Yes, I will. We'll
We're gonna
definitely
be
promote
looking.
that and get people to do that. That's easy. Let's see who does it. Let's put a challenge out there. See who does it.
Yes. Do a challenge and tell me what the hashtag is so I can follow.
Oh,
Okay.
fun. That's
Okay.
fun.
In terms of general technology, I'm curious. I always would love to tap into your knowledge to see what are you looking at because we have these apps. You say we accelerate like 5 years, which is true. 5 years ago, I had no clue what Discord was. Now I use it multiple hours a day. 5 years ago, I maybe had dabbled a little bit into Slack, but not as much as like now. Canva. That's another one that kind of just came out of nowhere. Like 5 years. I'm thinking, what are you looking at that you think is going to really hit the mainstream in the next year or two that you want to tell us about?
Oh, wow. That's a tough one. That's a really tough one because there's difference between what I look at for the greater industry or our industry. Because our industry, we're slow to adapt.
Yes, we are
Um,
slow.
but we're better. I have to give us compliments. We are so much better. COVID did us justice, right? It did
Mhm.
us huge justice and moved us forward. I don't, and to be honest with you, Amani, I would say for our industry, I don't want to mention other apps like that. I want to mention more uses of what is already in place,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Almost similar to, like I said, with LinkedIn as a strategy, right? Because I mentioned that because my love and my heart is always Twitter for live events, which is never going to go away. It's still going to always be the best platform. People can have their opinions on this, that, and the other around it. That's great, but it's built for that and it's going to do
Mhm.
well. So, what other strategy you're going to do to kind of augment what's going on over there, right? You should use this. So, similar to what you're talking about with Discord, I think that people should be thinking about what communication tools that they should be utilizing as second channels for their event, meaning back
Okay.
Mm.
channels. Because, I'm a logistics person. That's what I absolutely adore, where the rubber meets the road. And when I execute events, it's always focused on communication. Last minute the split decisions that need to be made, who is making them and how and why? Is it just verbal? It can't stay just verbal anymore. What are you using? Everyone knows my heart is WhatsApp because it's easy, it's fast. You don't have to worry about connectivity the way it is. It's expanded, right? But what tool are you putting your team on that can keep that communications going? There's a lot of apps out there and technology that say that they're all in ones, and there is no all in one. It does not exist because it's too many things. That's trying to say that tech is perfect and tech is not necessarily perfect. It's something that's going to push you forward. So I think it's how. So just like Discord,
Mhm.
you can create channels and there are all kinds of things that you can drill down. There's e-commerce, there's all kinds of different things. I think as event professionals, we need to figure out and pick a tech that we can drill in and utilize it very well to be able to communicate as seamless as we possibly can. Those are the technologies that we should be looking at. And AI is definitely one of them. I don't, but we've already talked about that. But I think that that's the key because it's not going to really matter if you can't communicate.
Got it. One final question, and I'll turn it to Mandy. Why are you such a fan of WhatsApp?
Oh, because it's fast. It's as fast as Twitter.
Your
Because it's
second
fast.
love, your second
It's
love.
my second love. Well, because because it levels the playing field for everyone. So if I have people across the planet and the world, easy to get
Yes.
on. Very simple, clean, easy. I keep all my information in one place. I don't get lost in threads or any of those types of things. So for as a second channel, Slack I also utilize, but not a lot of people. It just depends on who is going to allow themselves to get on it. But in terms of being more what I call colloquial tech, if you will, I like WhatsApp. There are a few other ones out there that are quote unquote more secure, but the use cases are not as high as you could use it for that.
Okay. I like it. Yes. Mandy. I mean, I could keep asking apps and more questions, but I love how you it's a little balance here. So over to you, Mandy.
I love WhatsApp too, and Amani's really trying to get me to get on Slack more. So, so you may have
Yeah.
took the sales test. Thank you.
Maybe, but Tess, if before man asks a question, if you have, because we collaborate on a lot of things and it's starting to grow and get bigger and bigger. We have like our Adventures of Business Live, so we have like team members that are helping us. If you have a suggestion for maybe a platform that could be better for us than Slack, feel free to share that too, because I'm about to get started, but we're open to trying something new also.
I'd say Slack because Discord is I love Discord, but you gotta train people more.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
have
it's
to
too
they
hard.
have to have the gamer idea and mindset to be able to convert over. Slack is it has was more obscure originally and
Right.
now has become more mainstream. So I think that and creating your channels, private, unprivate, and all of that, and you could manage all, and then the connectivity and integrations with all different platforms is very,
Yeah.
very key. So Slack would to me would be perfect.
Okay, good.
Amani, make the channel, Amani. I've been
Got it.
waiting.
Got it. You're right. I'm on it. I got it. Mandy inspires me to be more effective with my time because she
Yeah.
kills it.
And you
I'm
can create channels per event. You can have basic channels, that you use all the time, and then you can have channels per event. I mean, it's endless.
okay.
Oh, a channel
We're gonna
per
call,
event. Okay,
yeah,
gosh.
yeah,
All
we're
right,
gonna call
Tess.
Tess, get Tess, 30 minutes worth of Slack.
I know. We're 30 minutes in. She's already dropping so many nuggets. My head's spinning. I love it.
Go
I love
ahead,
it.
go ahead.
Okay, Tess, I have a question, not related, well, maybe related to technology. Let's see how this goes. You are self-proclaimed you don't like to write, which is totally fine, right? You don't
And
you
how does
don't
she
like
know
to write.
that, Amani?
I know
Look,
things.
look, oh,
Tess, I
I
know
cannot be
things.
held accountable. Which
I
must
know
be out there.
I chased the full moon this weekend. I'm really tuned in. No,
And
but
I'm a
here's
moon child. Look, and I'm a moon child too. So
are
there you
you?
go.
When's
I
your
am.
birthday? Are you
July
July?
18th. July 18th.
Yes,
Are you, are
Cancer.
you a Cancer too?
I'm August 9th. I'm a Leo, but I was
Oh, she's
raised by
close.
hippies, so I know all of this
Oh,
stuff. Yeah,
yeah.
I know
There
all
you
this stuff.
go. There you go.
But anyways, going back to so you're self-proclaimed you don't like to write, which I think is so important for us in our career to say, here's what I love, here's what I don't like, and then you determine what you delegate and you outsource. So it's a two-part question. So part one is because it seems that you really know yourself, like you don't like to write. What advice do you have for people that try and just get out there and do it all? And they're not listening to their inner voice of what they do like, what they don't like, how to delegate. So that's part one. Because I've listened to 4 or 5 interviews with you over the weekend where you're like, I don't like to write. I don't like to write. I'm like, she's so definitive about that. And I respect that so much. So first question is like, how do you help people develop their own voice and make their claim? That's my first
Uh,
question.
Okay.
Okay.
Um, Mandy, I love you. You are
I love you
amazing.
too.
I am so
Told you.
excited. Oh my gosh, she's got the greatest questions. Oh my Lord. So, believe me, I was well into my 40s before I could verbalize it. Knew it for a long time, fearful of it. And even to this day, I'm 100% clear, and most people won't admit this, that that is probably the only skill on the entire planet where the majority of the people in the world don't respect you over it because
Mm,
they think it's easy.
Mm,
So most
it's
skills in the
not.
world, they're like you either have it, you don't, you this, you that. Most people on average, really think it's, oh, you can do that. Oh, you can write that. It's only one page, or it's this, it's that. And if I tell you how debilitating it is for me, it's debilitating for me. And I've had to, it's been a long time for me to be able to actually say that. That's a challenge to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to it, it's not simple for me. Like, I literally go through more than just straight procrastination. So I need things to be able to help and assist. AI is one of them. Like, I can throw my ideas out, it can come back, and I'm like, oh gosh, yes, that's what and I move things around, edit, tear it up, do all. And I was like, it's built. That is something that was built for me because audio is my thing. Pen to paper is just not my thing. It was freeing the first time I did it. And I had to learn to put myself in situations where I had people who cared about me to hear me and support me on it. I had other
Yes.
close event professionals who to this day will stand up for me and say, "Oh yeah, she's not going to do that." And the moment I heard them say that, or someone came back to me and told me that they said, in other words, I wasn't in the room and I wasn't a part of that, it was so gratifying because I felt finally free, that I could stand in my truth and still be respected for it. And people could focus on where my joy, where my passion, and what you can get more from me in, as opposed to putting me in situations that were difficult and challenging. So the advice that I can say to others is you have to stand in your truth. If COVID didn't show you anything else, tomorrow is not promised. We have to be happy and we have to lead with joy, and that energy radiates out. So in order for me to be my best self, I have to create situations that are beneficial for me and allow me to flourish. And if not, I can't. I can get other people who love to do that to help and assist. I can throw out ideas all day long. I'm an ideation type of person. So someone has to catch it for me and help pull it together. And I can look at it, edit it, walk through it, give it back to them, have them put it together. And I look at what they put together, and then we go from there and iterate. And that's just how it has to be for me. If it's not, then I just can't. And I have to say no, learn how to say no. So hopefully that's helpful, Mandy. But
Oh,
thank you for asking that.
that's
Part two.
so powerful. Love
Yes.
that. Yeah.
Yes. Part two, Mandy, go ahead. Part two.
Part two, what tools and resources do you use? It sounds like you use ChatGPT. So for people out there that don't like to write, like my husband, I'm a writer. I can write, things just fall out of my brains, right? But there's a whole bunch of other stuff I don't like to do and I'm not good at. My husband will sit down, it'll take him like 2 hours to write an email. I
Yeah.
understand when you say that it's really difficult for him, but he's really good at a whole bunch of other things. So for people out there that don't like to write, they don't want to write, like what are those resources that they could use that you use?
So beyond ChatGPT, so I use Otter. I love using Otter because
Mhm.
Otter is an audio tool that will translate your audio, your voice over to text immediately, and then it will go into a editable format. So you can have it in Word, Google Docs, text, any of that, and then I can redo it. So any interviews, people would ask me questions, send me in questions for interviews for. I talk into it, my answers, look at it, organize it, send it back to them with the audio so they can hear the inflections in my voice and then see what I've edited for them back to them. So they can
Mhm.
have all that copy all they want to, but they can actually hear it and feel it from me. So that is another one. Grammarly also saves my entire life. It was the best thing that I could have ever invested in. I've tried some others that became newer since Grammarly, and they're great and all, but Grammarly is a little bit more it's baked, right? In the oven. It's already ready out of the oven and it's really great. And I utilize it across everything. So I have the plugin in all of my browsers. I have it in my email. It's on my mobile device. So it follows me around everywhere I go. So those are the ones that that stand out the most, that help me a great deal, besides people.
Do you pay for Grammarly every year?
All day, every day is the best
Really?
decision that I cannot live without it. I
Wow.
cannot
So you
live
pay,
without it.
okay? I was just asking
All
someone
day.
else the question
I
today.
pay for everything that helps me. I
Okay.
cannot live without. I pay for Otter. I get my 600 minutes a year. Absolutely. I cannot. I mean a month. I cannot live without those things. because Otter for me too, I put it on my phone. I ask people, tell them that I'm going to be doing it. Do you mind? That's how I take my notes. Boom, turn it on. It's on. Or I integrate it into Zoom, wherever I need it to be. But I have to. Because again, remember, those are tools that help my life, help
Mhm.
my stress levels, right? And that's different than someone who just, oh, this is cool. This is nice to use. That's a great app. No, no. That helps my sanity and my peace.
See, you just sparked my mind about using. First of all, I probably will. I was just asking someone else to pay for Grammarly. Second, as I'm writing this book, like it's a lot of research, it's a lot of writing, but you can use Otter to like maybe just talk and dictate, and that can be a good portion of your
It's
writing. So you
done.
don't have to sit down and
It's that.
talk.
So you don't have to do that. It's done. It's already done. And then you can just edit it, move it around. You can highlight as you're going through. You can upload pictures and videos and content to different areas too as you're thinking through it. As it's recording for you, absolutely. As it's translating and transcribing for you, absolutely.
Okay. Now, next question is all three of us, this is probably the first time, all three of us are educators. So we all teach in like the college system and all that.
Mhm.
I wanted to know what message do you have to students, to young professionals who are just about
Oh,
to enter into the industry, based on what you've seen the evolution of the industry up until 2023, middle of the year? What advice would you have for them about entering into our industry?
oh my. You want me to go first? So I'm
It's all
glad you
you.
mentioned
Yeah,
that.
you're the only
How are
one.
you?
When I said all three, I think you were going first.
People are
Oh,
sick
because
of
I
hearing
was,
from
I
us.
was, I was
No,
setting
no,
the
no.
stage.
I think it's great. No, I just finished teaching a class in event design at University of North Carolina, Charlotte. So, and it was a wonderful, fabulous experience. I was very happy to do so. And what I saw, even though it was in a continuing ed program, what I saw is people from all backgrounds still interested in our industry. People who are out there doing it still interested in learning how to and thinking they don't necessarily know. So, two things. One, I think it's very important for you to explore all aspects of the industry. So, if you're able to get internships, whether they're paid or not, just to learn and know what you want to do. So you can figure out, do you want to do social events or do you want to do business events? Just
Mhm.
basics, right? And then I also think it's very interesting for you to see both sides too. Like, we're venue managers, right? What's the venue side of things? What's the supplier side versus the planner side? What does that look like? What side do you really truly want to be on? And I also think it's very interesting for you to sit up there and say, all right, well, I want to get a student membership for MPI, for PCMA, for ILEA, for all of the different organizations and test them out to see
Mm.
what, and even for ours, National Coalition of Black Meeting Professionals, to just see what it's like and, you know, who I can network with, and I can ask them a whole lot of questions and figure out what I want to do. Because I think so many students have um, I'm not going to say unrealistic. I think a point of view of our industry, and it can be tunnel as opposed to it's very, very wide. So those are some of the things I think that students should take a look at. So I don't think it should be more theory. I think you need to touch to feel it, try it out, and see what works, and keep moving along and testing it out.
Okay. All right. Follow-up question would be, you mentioned several associations, PCMA, MPI, National Coalition of Black Meeting Planners, HSMAI, ASAE. How has professional associations helped your career personally and professionally?
Oh my gosh, amazingly. Like I mentioned, ACE died from the beginning,
Right.
ACCED, ED-I. I couldn't live without them at all. And my mentor when I was younger uh, stressed to me just that. As a student, join these organizations. When I was in college, join these organizations. And these were organizations not necessarily dealing with events, because I was doing events in college, but still just joining organizations for reasons I didn't even understand at the time. And I just did. But it's helped from a networking perspective. And when I say networking, I meant I can go to people to ask them questions who are actually doing the things. Either I don't know what I want to do, or I kind of know and I'm not sure. And it's actually provided access. It really demystified a lot of things where I was able to have access to people and events and experiences I would not have. So very, very important. And then, like I said, ACETIDE helped me through my times, right? And then now with the National Coalition of Black Meeting Professionals, I I sit on the board, so I'm able to make decisions and hopefully represent our industry in a different type of way so I can give back. Been on committees on all of the other and other industry organizations that I've been a part of, but now I'm actually able to sit on the board and lead in a different way. So
All right. Great answer. Mandy, maybe one more from you, and then we'll get to some of our favorites, and then we'll ask Tess to ask us questions.
I
yeah.
love it. I love it. Okay, I have to read my notes for this one because you said something in an interview that I spit my water out and I loved it. I loved it. It
Uh
was
oh.
so great. No,
Uh
so I heard you say, I was born from the loins of entrepreneurs. and and I was born from the loins of coaches and mechanics.
I love it.
And we learn so much from our parents. We learn what we don't want to be and do, and then we learned what we
Oh.
do want to be and do. So from of your entrepreneurial parents, what did you learn that you're like, hell no, I'm never doing this? And then
Huh.
what did you learn that you carry with you today and you still engage with?
Oh my gosh. Oh, so many. So I'll tell the big one of the biggest things is don't work for free. Always get paid.
Mm-hmm.
Always get paid. I don't care what you do, always get paid. Amani knows that. Just always get paid. I don't care what it is, always get paid. And paid can
AGP.
look, yes, PAID. And there, it paid can look different in different ways. During COVID, that paid looked like exposure. That paid looked like bartering services. That paid, but you have to have a value, but do not do anything for free and do not write yourself out of a contract. Meaning, if you have an agreement with someone and they say they're going to do it, have a contract and make sure that you're in it for the value that you need to be and for what you're worth. Um and what was the other part of the question? I'm sorry, Mandy. You
Well,
had
what
another.
was that? What you just said, is that something you learned that you would never do? Is that something
Oh
you
yeah.
learned?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Those are both nevers. Those are both
Okay,
nevers.
okay. So you saw
And
your
then
parents
and then
not getting paid is what
exactly,
you're
exactly.
saying. Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
gotcha, gotcha.
plenty of times, and
Yeah,
family as well, because I have a family who are entrepreneurs as well.
yeah.
Just being kind, because I come from a kind family, and helping people out in times of need, and it can become too much of that, right? It can be just come too much. So volunteering is volunteering, but volunteering is not entrepreneurship.
Mhm.
So on the other side, the fabulous things is the independence I learned, where you could write your own destiny, if you will. And you can dictate how you do what you want to do. And you can have work and play, and you can play as hard as you work as well. But you also have to realize that, you have to do the work in order to be able to play hard. So I
Mhm.
think those are the keys.
I love that. Are your parents still with us?
No, my
What are
dad
their
just transitioned in December, my mom in 2016.
what are their names? I'm gonna make a water toast to them, hydration
Oh,
toast.
thank you.
Yeah.
So Mary, and then last
Mary.
name same Bismail, and then Calvin Senior is my dad.
Mary and Calvin, thank you for the
Cheers.
wisdom.
Yes.
Hey
Cheers.
Thank you
Yes.
guys,
for the
what
wisdom, Mary and
up?
Calvin. We call on you. Thank you for Tess.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
That's
that was
a
so sweet.
That was
that's a
good
perfect
advice.
segue. That's a perfect great advice too. Perfect segue to now. We'll kind of flip the script and let you, Tess, ask both myself and Mandy each
Mm.
question. You decide who you want to ask first, and then after that, we'll
Ooh.
ask final questions, and we'll be done. Who's
Well, I'm
first?
gonna look in the audience and see if I see anything. If I don't see anything, I'm about to go for it.
I
Okay.
think you should go for it. I think you should go
Okay.
for it.
Okay. Let's see. Mandy. And if you had your fairy dust, right? And you had to throw up that little fairy dust with the wand,
Mhm.
how would you change the industry?
Oh, snap. I know how I would change it. And you touched on it earlier when you said it. I wanted just to shout because I am with you. I love our industry. I've been at it 25 years, 24 years, but we are behind. It
Mm,
always seems like we are behind. And there's a handful of people that are trailblazers, they're on the cutting edge, they know what's next. But for the most part, I feel like we get our industry as a whole. And I get like that sometimes, not all the time. Like we get mired in the way things always were done. We get mired in like, this is what my boss taught me. And we don't expand beyond where we can. We put so many limits on ourselves. We put so many of us and other people in boxes. So if I could change one thing about the industry, it would be let's look at other industries, how they're doing things, and what can we apply to our industry. The other thing I would change about the industry is just being open to trying new ways of doing things, whether that's a contract clause or the way we negotiate contracts, whether that's how we collaborate in partnership, vendor to vendor, and we get under the same umbrella together. Like we don't have to be like adversarial competitors. We can be like co-collaborators and co-conspirators.
Hmm.
So I would just change the mindset of like operating from maybe using an abacus to maybe being a little like digitally mathematical. And I would like operate from a place of instead of fear, limitless and
Mm.
being a little more open.
Oh,
mhm.
cool.
Well done.
Yeah,
Nice, nice,
that's what I
nice.
would do.
Yeah, it's definitely fear-based for our industry.
For
And
sure.
can I ask Amani a question to you?
Of course, you could ask each question. Okay,
Any
what you got?
question? Oh gosh,
Yes,
oh gosh.
any
I have
question.
so many rolling, and I'm trying to figure out which one I'm gonna do. Okay, so as a black man in our industry, right? It's a little
Yes.
different than the other
Okay.
experiences because we're full of women all over the place, right? So if you had your fairy dust and wand, right, what would you change from your point of view?
So you kind of touched on it in terms of I would just want to make the industry more diverse, both in the people that we see in all types of positions, the people we see that are giving the speeches at conferences, people making decisions, just more diversity. And it's not just African American, Latin American, Asian, but with all the other different demographics, just make sure they're all properly represented consistently. Like it's okay if maybe after George Floyd in 2020, okay, you're gonna have a focus on it, but here we are 3 years later. Are you still focused on it? Things like that. I think that would be my first preference or my first wish. And then just kind of as Manny was saying, just be more forward thinking with technology and trying things. We're so behind. So she's right. So that would be another one. Um, yeah, that would be my answer to that question right there.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Of
Thank
course.
you.
Of course.
Amen. Amen,
Yeah.
Amani. I agree.
Yes. Now, a couple final questions for me. My first one is I love to ask this question, and Manny loves it when I ask this question.
I do.
But if we're going to go back to talk to 21-year-old Tess and give
Oh,
her
you said
advice,
21 or 12? Which one?
21.
21.
Bring her back. Call on her.
Yes. Yes. Why did you want to talk to 12-year-old Tess?
Well, she's sassier. No, go ahead.
Okay.
Can we talk to both, Amani? Let's
Bring
talk
the
to both. We've
sassy,
never had somebody
sassy
talk to
12
both.
years
Let's
old,
do both.
12-year-old to the conversation. We're at a coffee shop. I'm sitting down. I see 12-year-old Tess to my left. I see 21-year-old Tess to my right. And you are going to give, and then I have Tess where she is right now to my immediate left. What advice would you give your younger selves based on what you
Oh
know now?
my gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay. So my 12-year-old self. Oh, I love your questions. So my 12-year-old self, I probably let's see, 12. I'm trying to get my grade. So that was probably like,
Sixth or seventh grade.
yeah, somewhere in there. Okay. And then where was I? I'm still having the same experience. Okay. Okay. Yes. All right. So I would tell her because she would have just landed in Atlanta. So
Okay.
yeah, so she would have been just brand new in that area. I would tell her, enjoy your seventh grade year and eighth grade year. But when you go to high school, choose that obscure high school that you would have never, that you almost did, that you didn't go to? You could say, you know what, I went to the other one, but you should have chose the first one, because
Oh,
that particular high school, well, at that time, it's called Paideia. So that particular high school has like an international feel and flair.
Mm,
There are really, they can explore their curriculum. Their curriculum wasn't quite set, so it was, a lot of people who have, let's just say president's daughters went there and X, Y,
mm,
and Z, right? But the curriculum was exploratory. And the whole aspect of it is you could find your way, right? You could travel the world, you could do all kinds of things. So I would have told her, go that path so that you'd be more worldly than you are now earlier, and then you can go to Spelman. There you go.
okay.
That would have
All
been my,
right. We like it. We like it.
yeah.
And then my final question, and then I'll turn it over to Mandy to close us out, is just I'm really going to kind of ask you your question you asked us, which was already on my list in terms of in the industry that we're in and
Mhm.
how it lacks diversity across many fronts. And why do you feel that's the case? And what would you do to change it?
Um, wow. Really, Amani? Okay.
It
So
was on my list. It was on
you
my list.
said why? Okay.
That's right. Yes.
I'll listen. Oh, okay. So, okay. So, why do I think that our industry is not as diverse as it is? I think for a couple of reasons. I think white men have controlled a lot across the planet, and control C-suites and control and have power and have not allowed their power to be shared. I mean, even now, I mean, you can, like you said, it was a temporary shift and change. I think it's gotten better. I think this is, and a caveat to that, at no point in time, and I mentioned this the other day to someone, I said it's quite interesting and actually refreshing, if you will, is that I hear more white women say to me, "Can you believe that's an all white male X, Y, and Z?" Or they just gave all those awards to white men. Like we're just casually talking different places around the world, because I went to Europe twice last month, and I was in three other cities in three or four other cities in all of May, right? And it happened everywhere I went. I just overheard people or people just talking to me casually saying that. And I think that it's because of fear. If you say why,
Hmm.
fear is the bottom line. Fear of change is the bottom line. And then the second part of your question was what can be done to change it?
Correct.
You got to demystify, and you got to, it almost goes back to the virtual concierge concept of the holding hands, right? But I think the holding hands means you have to prove to people that it's okay. And we shouldn't have to prove to them that it's okay. We should be at the point of saying, okay, this should be done. And then you should already feel comfortable with this, make the decision and move on. But until someone actually calls it out and makes people accountable, and when I say accountable, that's not in numbers. That means, oh no, that is 5 white men who are up here. And what's the challenge and problem? And then once it's done, don't leave it out there. Someone has to rattle the fences and hold them accountable. Literally hold them accountable. So those are the two things.
All right. Well said. Mandy, you want to take us home?
Yeah. I like what Tess is saying about move the pieces around though. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
once something is brought to everybody's attention, then everybody's got to get together and move the pieces around and
Absolutely.
make everybody have a perspective and a voice. So I love that. That's a great reminder. I want to know, Tess, how can we support you? You are an
Oh,
entrepreneur. You're so involved in the industry. You're so involved out of the industry. How can we support you right now? What are a couple things you need help with, or you need from anybody listening or us?
oh my gosh, y'all are amazing. People don't ask these questions often.
Thank you.
And and you know why? And I know we're running out of time and have run out of time, but the biggest thing is I think people assume that everyone is okay. Right.
Mhm.
Mm,
I think COVID proved that, we have humanity, but I think we're slowly forgetting that, people need help and assistance too. And sometimes it's hard to ask for that. So what can you do for me? Just make referrals around me being able to execute events. I can be a great stage manager. I can be a great host. I can speak pretty well, get people engaged, and all of those things. And I like to execute and look at things at 30,000 feet. So that's really what I would ask.
All
Done.
right.
Easy
Done.
peasy. And you're
Yeah,
in Atlanta. You're in Atlanta, right?
I am in Atlanta rarely, but yes, that's where my home is.
Your
That's where
home
your
is,
that's where
yes.
your mail
That's
goes.
my
Does your mail go
Yeah.
to Atlanta?
yes, that's
Okay,
it. My mail comes to Atlanta.
That's great. All right, we will give you a round of applause and say thank you very much for taking time to spend with us and sharing your expertise and wisdom. So, round of applause there.
And jazz
Yes,
hands.
yes, yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we'll be sure to add all your information in our show notes and all of the things. We're going to put you back in the green room. We'll close out our show, but just stay there in the green room. Just thanks again. And now we're going to go back to Mandy and myself. So,
Thanks,
Mandy,
Tess. It's been so awesome chatting with you.
yes, yes. Um, Here we are, Mandy. We're all done. We're
Yeah.
getting closer to our 1 year anniversary too. So I
I
know you're excited
know.
about that. Who do we have next week that's coming? And what other things do you want to share?
Well, next week we have a man who makes safety sexy, Jason Berkowitz, who I have recently learned a lot of other interesting nuggets about. So I am very stoked for everybody to see our interview with Jason. So that is next week. And then we're just right now we're preparing. So we have a really rad show at the end of July. It's called Adventures in Business Juniors. And
Yes.
we're seeking out young entrepreneurs that you think have like a spark in their eye, a twinkle in their step, and we're going to be interviewing them. So we already have Emma who's 10, we have Ace who's 11. We're looking for a couple teenagers or a couple college age people just to balance out the young entrepreneurs. So if you have anybody that you know or you love or you think that might make a good 10-minute segment, share them with us because we want to learn from them. We want to learn what tools and tips they have, but we also want to give them some time on the mics that they can see what being an entrepreneur is all about. So that's the end of July. We're still forming that show, but we are looking for
Yes.
junior
Yes.
entrepreneurs.
I have two of my students who I'm waiting to hear back from. So excited about
Awesome.
that. Awesome.
Awesome.
Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. Make sure to, if you listen to this on our podcast, rate, review, and share the podcast with everyone else. Also, keep in mind about our next live broadcast. Feel free to comment and share. And with that, we will see you all in a week. Take care. Thank you for listening, and stay safe.
See
Bye,
you
everyone.
later. Bye, everybody.